In January 1982, a moment occurred that would forever be etched into rock and roll history. During a concert in Des Moines, Iowa, Ozzy Osbourne bit the head off what he thought was a rubber bat thrown on stage by a fan. It wasn't rubber. The incident sent him to the hospital for rabies shots and cemented his reputation as rock's wildest performer. But who is the man behind the myth? Behind the bat-biting, behind the devil horns and heavy metal thunder? How did a dyslexic kid from a working-class family in post-war Birmingham, England, transform into the Prince of Darkness and godfather of heavy metal? Today, we journey through the extraordinary life of John Michael Osbourne. From his humble beginnings in industrial Birmingham to global superstardom, through addiction, controversy, tragedy, and ultimate redemption. We'll explore how this unlikely hero helped create an entirely new genre of music that would change the cultural landscape forever, and how he's managed to survive despite decades of excess that would have killed most people several times over. This is the story of a man who has been written off countless times, yet always claws his way back. A metal icon whose career spans over 5 decades, whose music has inspired generations, and whose personal journey from self-destruction to self-awareness has fascinated millions around the world. This is Ozzy Osbourne, unfiltered, uncensored, and utterly unforgettable. The industrial smog of post-war Birmingham, England, hung heavy in the air on December 3rd, 1948, when John Michael Osbourne was born into a working-class family in the Aston area. This harsh landscape of factories and economic hardship would form the backdrop to Ozzy's formative years. Growing up in a cramped 2-bedroom home on Lodge Road, with his parents Jack and Lillian and 5 siblings, young John had little in the way of material comforts. His father worked night shifts at the General Electric Company factory, while his mother worked days at a factory making electrical components. Money was always tight in the Osbourne household. School was no refuge for young Ozzy. Struggling with dyslexia in an era when learning disabilities were poorly understood, he found himself labelled as stupid or lazy. The frustration of being unable to keep up with his classmates led to behavioural problems, and by age 15, he had dropped out entirely. When I was in school, they didn't know about dyslexia. They just thought you were thick, Ozzy would later reflect. It was horrible. I just felt worthless. To help support his family, Ozzy worked a series of menial jobs: apprentice plumber, slaughterhouse worker, car horn tuner, and even grave digger. But amidst the industrial grime and limited prospects, music offered a glimmer of hope and escape. The Beatles' explosion onto the scene in the early 1960s struck a chord with teenage Ozzy. Hearing She Loves You for the first time was a revelation, a moment that would alter the trajectory of his life. I knew then that's what I wanted to do with my life, he'd later recall. I wanted to make people feel the way the Beatles made me feel. His musical ambitions weren't immediately supported at home, but his parents managed to scrape together enough money to buy him a PR system, an investment in their son's dream that would ultimately change music history. By his late teens, Ozzy had placed an advertisement in a local music shop. Ozzy Zig requires gig. Has own PA. This humble classified would lead to a fateful meeting with guitarist Tony Iommi, bassist Geezer Butler, and drummer Bill Ward. And together, they would soon create something the world had never heard before. In 1968, amidst the psychedelic sounds of flower power and peace, 4 working-class lads from Birmingham were about to unleash something far darker onto the world. Ozzy joined forces with guitarist Tony Iommi, bassist Geezer Butler, and drummer Bill Ward to form a blues rock band initially called the Polka Talk Blues Band, later renamed Earth. The turning point came when Geezer, inspired by watching people queue for a Boris Karloff horror film, suggested they write music that evoked the same sense of dread. Taking their new name from that very film, Black Sabbath was born, and with it, heavy metal. Their eponymous debut album, Black Sabbath, was released on Friday the 13th of February 1970, opening with the ominous sound of rain, thunder and a church bell, followed by Iommi's now legendary tritone riff, known in medieval times as Diabolus in Musica, the devil in music. Ozzy's haunting vocals completed the sinister atmosphere. Critics hated it. Fans couldn't get enough. "We weren't trying to be satanic," Ozzy would later explain. "We were just four guys from Birmingham who were fed up with the peace and love era and reflecting the bleak reality we saw around us." The band's sophomore album, Paranoid, released just 7 months later, cemented their status with tracks like War Pigs, Iron Man, and the title track Paranoid, songs that would become metal anthems. Working at a blistering pace, they followed with Master of Reality, 1971, Volia Paranoid, 1970, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, 1973, and Sabotage, 1975. But as their star rose, so did the excesses. Drugs and alcohol became staples of the Sabbath lifestyle, with Ozzy leading the charge. "I was drinking 4 bottles of cognac a day at one point," he later admitted. "I'm amazed I'm still alive." The band's punishing tour schedule and substance abuse began taking its toll. Albums Technical Ecstasy, 1976, and Never Say Die, 1978, showed a band losing its cohesion and creative edge. Tensions within Black Sabbath reached a breaking point, particularly between Ozzy and Iommi. Ozzy's increasing unreliability and substance abuse issues led to the difficult decision to fire him from the band in 1979. The man who had helped create heavy metal found himself without a band, deep in addiction, and seemingly finished at just 30 years old. "When I got fired from Black Sabbath, I thought it was over," Ozzy would later recall. "I locked myself away in a hotel room for 3 months, doing drugs and drinking myself to death." But as one chapter closed, another was about to begin, one that would take Ozzy to even greater heights than before, thanks largely to an unexpected saviour who would change both his career and his life. Rock bottom sometimes provides the foundation for resurrection. After his dismissal from Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne spiralled further into a drug and alcohol-fueled depression. His career seemed over before his 31st birthday. But fate had other plans, arriving in the form of Sharon Arden, daughter of Black Sabbath's manager, Don Arden. Sharon saw something in the fallen rock star that others couldn't: potential. Taking over as his manager, she helped Ozzy assemble a new band, starting with the recruitment of virtuoso guitarist Randy Rhoads, a classically trained musician whose technical prowess and innovative approach would perfectly complement Ozzy's distinctive vocals. "Meeting Randy was one of the greatest things that ever happened to me," Ozzy would later reflect. "He was an unbelievable guitar player and helped me believe in myself again." With bassist Bob Daisley and drummer Lee Kerslake completing the lineup, Ozzy recorded his solo debut, Blizzard of Oz, in 1980. The album stunned the music world with its commercial polish and instant classics like Crazy Train, Mr. Crowley, and Suicide Solution. Far from being finished, Ozzy had found a new beginning. The follow-up album, Diary of a Madman, arrived just a year later in 1981, further establishing Ozzy's solo credentials with tracks like Flying High Again and the haunting title track. The Prince of Darkness was not only back, he was bigger than ever. But tragedy struck on March 19, 1982. While on tour in Florida, a plane carrying Randy Rhoads, along with hairdresser Rachel Youngblood and pilot Andrew Aycock, crashed after the pilot attempted to buzz Ozzy's tour bus as a prank. All three were killed instantly. Ozzy was devastated. "I lost one of my best friends in Randy Rhoads," Ozzy said. "There isn't a day that goes by that I don't think about him." Despite this crushing loss, Sharon pushed Ozzy to continue, guitarists Brad Gillis, Jake E. Lee, and eventually Zakk Wylde would fill the enormous void left by Rhodes as Ozzy released a string of successful albums. Bark at the Moon, 1983, The Ultimate Sin, 1986, and No Rest for the Wicked, 1988. During this period, Ozzy's solo success began to eclipse his work with Black Sabbath. His theatrical live shows featured outlandish stunts, throwing raw meat into the audience, his trademark crazy train entrance on a miniature railway, that made him one of rock's most compelling performers. But behind the scenes, the excesses continued. His substance abuse reached dangerous levels, threatening both his career and his marriage to Sharon, whom he had wed in 1982. Their relationship, tumultuous but unbreakable, would prove to be the anchor that repeatedly saved him from self-destruction. This period established Ozzy not just as a survivor, but as a solo artist who could stand on his own merits apart from Black Sabbath. Against all odds, the fired frontman had become even more successful on his own, a testament to his resilience and Sharon's unwavering belief in his talents. In 2002, the Osbournes premiered on MTV, transforming heavy metal's Prince of Darkness into America's favourite bumbling dad overnight. The reality show offered an unfiltered glimpse into Ozzy's home life with Sharon and their teenagers, Jack and Kelly, drawing 5 million viewers for its debut episode. What audiences discovered wasn't the demonic figure of legend, but a mumbling father struggling with the remote control and picking up dog poop in his Beverly Hills mansion. One day, I'm a fucking rock and roll star. The next, I'm a fucking family entertainment character, Ozzy once reflected. The show ran for 4 successful seasons, documenting family crises including Sharon's cancer battle and the children's struggles with addiction. This unexpected vulnerability humanized Ozzy, propelling him into mainstream acceptance. He performed at the White House Correspondents' Dinner and appeared in Super Bowl commercials, unimaginable feats for the former bat-biter. While some metal purists felt the show undermined his dangerous image, Ozzy embraced this new chapter. The show was good because people saw that I wasn't this fucking monster 24 hours a day. I was just this normal, bumbling fucking guy who happened to be a rock and roll singer. After The Osbournes ended, Ozzy returned his focus to music, releasing Black Rain, 2007, and Scream, 2010, while continuing to cement his legacy as metal's godfather. In 2011, something once thought impossible occurred. Ozzy reunited with Black Sabbath. The original lineup, minus drummer Bill Ward, recorded 13, their first album together in 35 years, which topped charts worldwide in 2013. Sabbath embarked on The End, their farewell tour concluding in 2017 in Birmingham, bringing Ozzy's journey full circle to where it all began. Though his solo career continued with 2020's Ordinary Man and 2022's Patient Number 9, health challenges increasingly defined this era. In 2019, Ozzy suffered a serious fall at home, forcing tour postponements. In 2020, he revealed his Parkinson's disease diagnosis, showing characteristic resilience. I'm not dying from Parkinson's. I've been working with it most of my life. His cultural footprint remains enormous. Inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice, with Sabbath and solo, his influence spans multiple generations, from Metallica to modern metal bands. Once condemned as demonic, he's now celebrated as an innovator who helped create an entire genre. I don't know what immortality is, Ozzy once said, but if people are still listening to my music when I'm gone, that's immortality, isn't it? Beyond the headline-grabbing antics and platinum albums, Ozzy Osbourne remains a man of surprising contradictions and lesser-known talents. Despite his Prince of Darkness image, he's a devoted grandfather who relishes family time with his grandchildren, often preferring quiet domesticity to wild parties in his later years. Many fans don't realise that Ozzy suffers from a genetic disorder that makes him resistant to alcohol and drugs, partly explaining his legendary consumption levels. Medical researchers have even studied his genome, fascinated by his survival despite decades of substance abuse. Surprisingly, for a metal icon, Ozzy is an avid gardener who finds peace tending to plants at his English estate. This gentler side contrasts sharply with his onstage persona. Similarly unexpected is his philanthropic work, including support for music therapy programs and animal welfare causes. Few know that Ozzy is ambidextrous, or that he wrote poetry long before he wrote lyrics. His dyslexia, often misconceived as lack of intelligence, masked a creative mind capable of crafting enduring songs that resonated across generations. Though famous for his wild lifestyle, Ozzy is also deeply superstitious, carrying lucky charms and following specific pre-show rituals. These quirks, combined with his self-deprecating humour and genuine vulnerability, reveal the complex man behind the myth. Someone who has faced mortality repeatedly and emerged with wisdom beneath the madness. Ozzy Osbourne's journey from working-class Birmingham to heavy metal immortality defies all odds. Through addiction, illness and controversy, the Prince of Darkness has survived when many predicted his demise. "I'm not the strongest, I'm not the smartest, but I'm certainly the luckiest man you'll ever meet," he once said. A humility that makes him enduringly relatable despite his larger-than-life persona. Enjoyed this glimpse into Ozzy's extraordinary life? Hit subscribe for more deep dives into music legends. Drop your favourite Ozzy moment in the comments below.